It seems to me that if your goal is to get rid of white supremacy, then you should stop believing in it. Hey folks, it's your old pal King Waspinator. Welcome back to Total Party Skills. There's a couple of movie trailers that have been out. There's for a Civil War movie and like Leave Your Home Behind or Leave It All Behind or some movie on Netflix. And a new trailer came out for the American Society of Magical Negroes. And they've been causing controversies because of lines of dialogue that, without getting to see these movies yet, you can't really properly understand the context in which those statements are made. I mean, perhaps they are ironic. Who knows? But since everyone's kind of casually reacting to it anyway, I guess my casual reaction to that is it kind of sums up in many ways my critique of whatever it is that we're deciding that we're calling woke, and why, despite the fact that I have very left-leaning, as Grim Jim would put it, libertine values, I don't particularly care for wokeness and have pretty much abandoned the Democratic left since about 2012 or so, at least in terms of being willing to vote for them. Not that I've been voting for the other side, I've just been abstaining for the last several elections now, because I don't really care for any of the options. But the real problem with statements like this, and a lot of this entity, shall we say, that we call wokeness, it is a form of white supremacy. It needs white supremacy to be around so they can bitch about it, for one thing. Much like the patriarchy, too. And so in order to be able to fight something, you have to believe in its existence. And since white supremacy is a belief structure, even if you're believing in it so that you could fight it and take it down, and you're viewing it negatively, you're still actually believing in the concept of it. And statements to the effect that there's a unique evil about white people, or that we're particularly like the most dangerous creature on earth, or anything like that, or more warlike, or we're the only ones who've ever conquered anything, is a form of like a white supremacist thinking. In nature, morality is fake, made up, varies from place to place, from culture to culture. There's little things that are different here and there that other people be like aghast at, and then other people are like, what? This is normal, what you're doing is fucked up. That's a very common thing. So there's no constant human truth of what morality is. But in nature, the only two basic traits that are important is our ability to breed and raise children, and our ability to kill, whether it be human, animal, or even plant. So to say that we are uniquely dangerous, uniquely villainous, is to say you believe that we are innately born with a superior trait that allows for natural selection, which is insane and stupid, and that's why the whole thing should be abandoned and we just stop believing in it. And perhaps the culture has had enough things happen to it in the year 2023 that we might see it's a slow turn. Unfortunately, there's been several events for the last half decade, especially with like Hollywood as example, where you'd think, oh, this is it. They're going to wake up now and stop doing this, and then they don't stop doing it. 2023 was scary to them. Hasbro had its issues, as we all know here on this channel. At the beginning of the year, there was the boycotts around Bud Light and Target over the summer. And then the issues in the Middle East causing certain demographics to be kind of forcibly red-pilled over the realities of what they've been participating in, and how that might change how certain things are aligned over the course of the next year as we march towards the 2024 election period. And, Disney having its giant flop year where they didn't manage to make $1 billion with a single movie, which, that wouldn't be a problem if you just make lower budget movies, or, movies that people actually want to see. You got your two options. How much any of their flopping actually has to do with Black Mermaids, I think is questionable. And still, in theory, like I said, I have rather left-leaning libertine values. I don't care what kind of movies people want to make. I just don't think people should be shitty about it when they're making the movie and being all like self-defensive. It doesn't send a good signal about what you've made or your intentions for why you made it. Just put it out there and see what happens. Kind of a thing. Unfortunately, like the movies in question are probably things that were all conceived of and greenlit and pre-produced during, the latter half of the pandemic lockdown years. These would all be things that would have been greenlit in the immediate aftermath up to a year later of the BLM protests / riots. I think we should call them peaceful riots and as a compromise. Or violent protests, your choice. But these movies were greenlit sometime in that window right after that, when Hollywood was all still putting black squares on their Twitter avatars. And the overproduction of modern day entertainment has slowed down what was already kind of a sluggish process to get, a piece of film or television from the field to the plate kind of a thing. Because of the lockdown restrictions they had imposed on themselves, the whole thing was just gummed up. And so, even despite the fact that there's been a cultural turn against a lot of these philosophies, I mean, as soon as Bill Maher is out there bitching about woke, this is like hopped off the internet, and mainstream normie societies, likely to turn in the direction that it seems to be turning. But unfortunately, that slow production process means that there's going to be a dribble of projects like these movies that are going to have things in them that's going to cause some people to raise their eyebrows. And it might not even be true that they're going to change their trajectory. The contractual obligation and confidence nature of how business is run makes it very hard for these companies to change course. Not only are people's jobs at stakes, but the actual contracts that provide the body of what the corporation is come under threat if people try to break them in order to be able to steer the company in a direction where it's back making profit again instead of preaching at people. This applies not just to movies and television, pretty much the entire entertainment sphere has some variation of this whole phenomenon that's been going on, and their ability to turn on a dime is non-existent. This is the Titanic trying to turn to avoid an iceberg, and it's too big of a boat and too big of an iceberg for it to likely be able to avoid the strike. In fact, one could argue that, the damage that some companies have had in their stocks and stuff this last year was the iceberg hitting. So either they're going to sink, or they're going to somehow try to patch up this boat and keep going. They're likely to do the latter and pretend like nothing happened, because it's also, I guess, like a little bit like that Costa Concordia boat sinking, where the captain didn't want to admit to the Coast Guard that his boat was sinking. But the boat is sinking. And the thing is that the left is going to need new voices. The left is going to need new voices from people who believe that being not racist is the preferable alternative to just being anti-racist. To be anti-something is to be identical to that thing. And if you remove that thing, you are now that thing. If, matter is identical to antimatter, there's just the positive-negative spin thing going on. And if all the matter went away in the universe, that would make the antimatter matter. Hell, it even applies to the anti-pope. If the regular pope was gone, the anti-pope would have been the pope at that point. That's just how the word anti is. And so, if we're trying as a society to be better, believing in this old bullshit so that we can keep fighting about it as make work because we have nothing else to do with our lives is not the answer, and is demonstrably been making things worse. Seriously, saying that people with my particular skin tone are the most evil, villainous badasses in all of history, there's a lot of subconscious white supremacy out there, and not all of it's in the white population. So anyway, I guess that's your food for thought for this Sunday. Until next time. And oh, while I still have you here, if you're looking for more of a tongue-in-cheek version of the Star Trek stereotype, might I suggest We Want Soviet Men, where you can play as comrades on your comrade starship exploring the stars. It's a sourcebook for Escape from Planet Matriarchy, the very first original Total Party System rulebook, where players take on the roles of 20th century astronauts who are shot 500 years into the future to crash land on the moon of Titan to discover the nightmare society that has evolved there, both of which can be found in the Vintage Future RPG, available now on Amazon.com in print or Drive-Thru RPG for a PDF.